Good evening and welcome to Solidarity on Tap. My name is Chris Kerr with the Ignatian Solidarity Network. On behalf of everyone at ISN, as well as our national Solidarity on Tap sponsors, Jesuit Volunteer Corps Northwest, Jesuit Volunteer Corps, Maryknoll Lay Missioners, and the Center for Global Education and Experience at Augsburg University, thanks for joining us tonight. For over 15 years, the Ignatian Solidarity Network has been uniting the Ignatian family, meaning the Jesuit network, as well as all those who are inspired to work for justice through the spiritual tradition of St. Ignatius of Loyola, to build a more just world through transformational programs and resources that deepen faith and lead to dismantling systematic injustice, collaborative initiatives that bridge divides and overcome exclusion, and collective action to defend and promote the inherent dignity of all God's creation, both people and planet. If you haven't already, please make sure to check out our website, ignatiansolidarity.net, and like and follow us on social media to get the latest advocacy alerts, educational resources, and much more. Now, many of you who've joined us for Solidarity on Tap before know this, but for those just joining for the first time, let me give you the background on Solidarity on Tap, okay? It didn't used to be exactly like this. We had a little different way we were doing it in a pre-COVID world. Solidarity on Tap usually took place in cities across the country, bringing together members of the Ignatian family in local bars and pubs to put the social in social justice. Powerful speakers addressed crowds of people from across the Ignatian network and that local community, and they made it a really great time across the country. But like many things, we moved virtual in late March 2020, and it was actually a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it. So we thought we'd keep doing it, including in 2021. And even though we're still gathering virtually, the goal of Solidarity on Tap is the same: to invite people to enjoy fellowship, maybe with a drink in hand, and to hear powerful reflections from members of the network engaged in work for justice. And as always, in order to build and enjoy community tonight, I encourage you to utilize the comment section on Facebook or YouTube, or post to Twitter or Instagram with the hashtag ISNLive to let us know that you and maybe your institution, your alma mater, are represented here tonight. All right. You can also post your comments and questions for our guest speakers this evening. You can do that on Twitter, Facebook, on YouTube as well. Let us know you're there. We want to hear from you. We want to engage with you. We want to share that you're out there. Okay. Now, Solidarity on Tap conversations are typically, they're a carefully curated recipe of serious conversation filled with opportunities to learn and grow in both heart and mind. We sprinkle in a little bit of humor and always carry them out with a vision of a hope-filled future. So with this in mind, I'm so excited to introduce our guests, good friends, Trena and Kevin Yonkers-Talz. Over the last 22 years, Trena and Kevin's work has centered on creating and directing academic formation programs rooted in the Ignatian tradition, integrating the exploration of faith and the promotion of justice through a praxis-based learning pedagogy. They co-founded and directed Santa Clara University's Casa de la Solidaridad program in El Salvador, the University of San Francisco's Casa Bayanin program in the Philippines, and the University Centroamericana Jose Simon Canes Centro Ignacio Ellacuría program. Now, Kevin and Trena recently made a move. They moved to the Bronx in New York City with their 4 daughters. Kevin is now working for the Jesuit Conference as the Director of Praxis-Based Learning for the Jesuit First Studies program. And Trena is pursuing a Doctor in Ministry degree at Fordham University and working in Our Lady of Mount Carmel Parish on a program accompanying and supporting immigrant women. Kevin and Trena were honored by ISN in 2015 with the Legacy of the Martyrs Award for their work in El Salvador. And Kevin actually spoke from the main stage at the Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice in 2016 as well. So I'm so excited to say welcome, Kevin and Trena. It's so great to be with you tonight. So great to spend this time together. I wish we were together in person, but this is really good. And I'm really grateful that you could be with us tonight. In fact, you guys were, I remember we actually invited you last spring, and you were a little bit busy last spring. You were preparing for this move to the Bronx that took a little while. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Chris, for having us. As you're sharing a little bit of our background, and now you're talking about what we're doing now, it sounds like you're talking about somebody else. I'm like, are we really doing this? We're really in the Bronx, studying and working in a new context. So it's good to hear other people say it, because it becomes much more of a reality that this is actually happening for us. So after, as you can imagine, 25 years out of the States, it's taking its time for us to settle here and find our stride. But thanks for having us. We're so happy to be here with you tonight, and look forward to our conversation.
And it's really great, Chris, to be reconnected with members of the Ignatian family. You know, I mean, the work that you all do at ISN, as I've told you time and time again, it's just so essential of keeping us all connected, especially, you know, during this time of COVID, where we're all kind of feeling, you know, very much isolated. So thanks for the opportunity to have a conversation with you tonight.
Good. Well, we're glad to have you. And we've got a great crowd of folks. We're going to do some shout outs here in a few minutes, kind of let you know who's out there. But let's get started, though. We usually kind of invite Solidarity on Tap guests to share a little bit about how they got to where they are. Like, not physically, but like, what were, for both of you, what were some formational events in your life that kind of led you to be doing what you're doing today, living your life the way you're living it today, and you know, and even thinking about this move, you know, back to the States, to the Bronx, things like that. What were the things that led to that? So the one thing I want to say too is we typically we're not so lucky to have two guests or a married couple as guests in Solidarity on Tap. You're our first married couple who's joined us. So we have to, I don't want you to fight for the microphone, but take turns, and the other person can have a drink while you're doing that. All right. So whoever wants to go first.
Thank you. Well, just to say, as we get older, this response gets longer. You know, it was easier back 15 years ago to answer the question, but you know, and I would share that we've been really fortunate, I think, collectively and also as individuals, to have some really great education at Jesuit universities, at state universities as well, and the opportunity to be with Jesuit volunteers in Belize, to reinforce some of what we studied in higher education in the States. And then for the last 20 years, to really be steeped in what it is we had been learning in higher education at Miami of Ohio and then at Boston College. So we've just been incredibly fortunate. And now being back in the classroom again at Fordham University after, I won't say how many years, but you all can do the math. It's been a number of years since I've been back in the classroom. And I've been reflecting a lot on just like the blessing that I've had to have had the foundation of some really great theological thought, and then be able to be in the context of El Salvador with people who have lived their faith, and it's really been a life or death situation for a lot of folks. And so studying liberation theology, suddenly it wasn't something that was studied, it was something that was lived. And it really wasn't even an option to look at theology from the perspective of starting with the lived experience with people most on the fringes. So that's kind of a short answer, just like really great schooling, great companions of conversation, and then people who have just continued, in my case, to inform me throughout my entire adult life and throughout my ministry. And I would say that I learned in El Salvador and had new thoughts and ideas and was challenged until the day that we left in June.
Yeah, Chris, for me, you know, I mean, as Trena says, like there are a lot of things to kind of that we could touch on, but one significant experience was actually when I was in undergrad at Fairfield University. And this was like in, I think, 1990, that I think kind of planted some of the seeds of the vocation. So two Jesuits, Jim Hayes, who's actually currently at Holy Cross, and Simon Herrick, who unfortunately has passed away, coordinated one of these short-term immersion experiences. And that was, so we went to actually Kingston, Jamaica. And it really it raised a lot of questions for me, coming from growing up outside of Chicago and having all of a sudden experience of walking with, for a brief amount of time, the people of Kingston. It really raised a lot of questions, and Jim and Simon did a great job of kind of providing a lot of times for us to be able to reflect together. And this was like in 1990, so it was a while ago. But I think that experience really raised some questions that, I've continued to kind of wrestle with in when we intentionally place ourselves in the path of those on the margins, and how that kind of can work with us with our own vocations and stuff. So just a concrete experience.
Yeah. And I know there are so many, graduates of Jesuit colleges and universities out there who were part of programs like that, that deeply influenced their path, right, and had a significant impact on their path. Let's find out who's with us tonight. We have a bunch of folks here that we're going to kind of give some shout outs. We're going to say welcome to Mary Kay, who's joining us from Columbia, Maryland. Hello to Carolyn from San Jose, California. Carolyn and Steve, sorry. Got hello from Kalamazoo.
Hey!
We know who that is. All right, good.
Yeah, hi, Mary Frances.
Excellent. Maria is joining us from Ohio. Welcome, Maria.
Oh, fantastic.
Another Maria is joining us from
Maria.
Toronto. Excellent. Beth is joining us from St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. Welcome,
right.
Beth. Alyssa says, hey, Kevin and Trina, it's so good to see you both. Allison says, hi, Tree and Kevin.
Allison.
Sarah Signorino from Canisius College in Buffalo. Anthony says, hello from Spokane.
Hey,
Hi, son.
Yeah. Marcus says,
Marcus.
from Cincinnati. Allison says, hi, Marcus. That makes sense. Trina Dad says, hi, Kevin Tree from KCM from Kansas City, Missouri. Excellent. Let's see. Katie says, sending lots of awesome love to y'all in the Bronx. Adelante, Kevin Tree. Excellent. Katie, another Katie. Well, that is it's the same Katie there, right? That's good.
Hey.
Hola,
Hola.
Hey, no verte, pero saber que ahí estás.
Nick says, hi, Trina and Kevin. So excited to be here. Colleen says, Casa Bayanin, alumni in DC. Excellent. Ann says, hi from John Carroll. Ann, we guys have visited you both years ago. Elizabeth says, hi, Kevin. Trina.
Fantastic.
Grace is with us.
Grace.
All right. And we'll get some. One more. Who's that? Blaine. Blaine says, missing y'all. All right.
Good. Buddy.
So I told you people were watching. All right. No need to be worried.
It's okay to cry. Can people cry on the show?
It is totally okay to cry as long as we find the time to laugh as well. We have to laugh too. This question could go either direction, laughing or crying. But who's someone that you came to know in El Salvador who had a significant impact on you?
Who didn't? Is a better question.
There you go.
Gosh. Yeah. I mean, they're. Do you want to? Yeah.
So I would say two people, and one who actually is on Lolo Guardado, who was one of our original companions, praxis site partner, educator. We became very close with him, his wife, and his two daughters. They live in Mariona. And Lolo is someone who, came from Chalatenango, and just in walking together, him accompanying us accompanying his family, has been one of the real gifts of my life, of our lives, for our girls as well. So Lolo definitely comes to mind, and also Dean Brackley. So Dino imagining a lot of folks know who Dean was, but he was a Jesuit who went down to El Salvador after the killings of the 6 Jesuits, El Ben Salina, at the UCA. Dean, who was actually working here in the Bronx, decided to kind of make himself available to go down and continue the work of the martyred Jesuits there at the UCA. And Dean was actually the one who invited Trina and I to consider coming down to El Salvador. He put us in touch with other folks up in the States, Charlie Curry, Father Charlie Curry, Paul Locatelli, Steve Pravat. But Dino is someone who I feel his spirit very close these days. I've had the chance of, with our work here in the Bronx, to be able to meet with folks that he worked with on the South, in the South Bronx. So Dino is someone, and, for anyone interested in the discernment, his book on Call to Discernment in Troubled Times is fantastic and continues to influence a lot. So those are 2 folks for me. Yeah.
God, I really, I would have a hard time narrowing it down, but I do have to say, when we knew it was coming time to be leaving El Salvador, and I really couldn't imagine life beyond there, because we had lived there for so long. We had started our family there. We had raised our daughters there. We had created this program, created another partner program. This was our home. This was who we were. And I always wondered, when, and if I cry, it's not necessarily because I'm sad. So I may cry. I wondered, would reflecting back on life in El Salvador seem real, or would it kind of seem like this other reality that we lived? And I kind of scared to live into that. I was scared of what that would mean and what my time in El Salvador would mean. And now we are well into our year of not being there. And I have found great comfort to know that, that my time in El Salvador and my relationships with people in El Salvador are with me every single day. And that I will, for the rest of my life, be shaped by my experiences in El Salvador, by the people who accompanied our family, the people I accompanied. And there's just like incredible comfort in knowing that. And I think for me, kind of a surprised maturity of, because I'm, for those of you who know me, I'm a very in the moment kind of person, and reactive and emotional. And it's been really a blessing to be here in the States and to call on and to recall on a pretty frequent basis all of my relationships in El Salvador, and relationships that continue to be formed. I don't think a day goes by that I don't talk to people in El Salvador, and not because it's something I'm clinging to because I can't let go of. Rather, it's because of the relationships that have been built. And I think a lot of people who are on here tonight have shown us, being a student or coming on staff or visiting, like those relationships can continue. And they do continue once you leave El Salvador. So I'm not going to say a specific, I can't say specific.
Sure. Yeah. That's good. You want to talk a little bit more about that, that process of discernment that you kind of went through as you thought about, leaving, the idea of coming to the Bronx, and because it wasn't just a professional move. I mean, the girls came, right? Your whole family came. It was a significant shift, and not to mention that you now have to endure winter. Which I hope that's going okay for you, because I feel like
we like to say we're surviving it. We're on the backside.
Yeah,
we are.
We all are.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that discernment process like? How did that go? Did you find things that you really struggled with? And then, of course, you're doing a lot of the departure in the pandemic, which had to make the leaving and saying goodbye that much more difficult.
Yeah, the discernment process is something, we've been talking with a lot of couples about this, because, I think there's so much richness, obviously, from the Ignatian spirituality and, Ignatius's kind of discernment. And, but a lot of that is done kind of like on an individual basis, So like in doing that as a family, it's kind of like, well, okay, like I can, go through that process myself, but, as a married couple, like, how is the Spirit moving, with Trina? And like, how do we kind of like decipher with the girls, So we have 4 daughters, and, 2 of whom are studying, at the university, and 1 in high school and 1 in 5th grade. So going through that was really, it took a lot of time, I think it was, and a lot of prayer and kind of contemplation. But the hope was that, as we go through it, it's like trying to discern, where is God calling us now in this history, in our historical moment. So yeah, it was, and then, but it's, it's not just kind of like, well, where's the calling? It's also, you have to look at the landscape, like what are some options, like realistically, like where can we be moving? So, yeah, it's a fascinating process to go through, and not always easy, not always easy, and not always totally clear, but I do think that as a family, and we've had a lot of conversations with the girls about even leading up to, we had decided that we were going to be leaving El Salvador prior to the pandemic. So that call, we knew that after 20 plus years, it was time to make a change. But yeah, and then, through the pandemic, that's a whole other thing, but I don't know if you have stuff to share, Trina.
Maybe just to share, and I think especially if our girls are listening, to acknowledge that discerning as a family, I think it would be romanticizing and not fair to not talk about the messiness of it and the pain of it, and with 6 people and 4 dogs, they really didn't have an opinion in the process, but they came with us. Not everybody wanted to go, and not everybody was ready. Nobody wanted to go, but not everybody was ready to go. And we kind of had to. And even for myself, the discernment process has never been an easy one. And whenever we've made really big transitions in our lives, whether it was to decide to do JV, at the time it was JVI in Belize back in the 90s, or moving for the first time to El Salvador in the late 90s, now we're dating ourselves, right? And even coming to the Bronx, each one of those moments, I did it, I wouldn't say kicking and screaming, but my heels dug pretty deep in the sand. I came here to the Bronx once in November to visit, and then we came back in February to visit. And both times I kind of came with the idea of, I'm going to prove to everybody, these are the reasons I'm not going. So I've also learned, kind of with my spirituality and my relationship with God, that oftentimes when I say those kinds of things and when I react that way, it's almost a sure sign that, no, in fact, that is where you're going. And in fact, it's where you're supposed to be. And so I just want to say, like, I think sometimes when we talk about discernment and reflecting and Ignatian spirituality, like, this idea that, like, oh, if we know it's the right thing to do, like, we'll move to it with grace and openness, and it's not always easy. Doesn't mean that it's wrong, but I just think sometimes it can be really hard and really messy. And I just wanted to share that from a little reality check for my process going through it.
Yeah, the kind of the messiness of any life decision, but especially when you've been so embedded in a place for so long, right? Like, and
Right.
I really appreciate you kind of sharing that, Trina. That just the real openness about the, how it can be, because I think that's so true for a lot of good decisions come with a lot of struggle, right?
Right.
Yeah, and it's sometimes we can gloss over that, and yeah.
Well, Kevin always, the differences between us. Like, he actually does make it look pretty graceful and pretty easy. And I'm the one who's like, wait a minute, this is not easy. This is not graceful. But then
but I've learned a lot, and like, it is messy. It is messy. And so it has to be,
Oh, and our going to the Philippines too. Well, actually, I know that's not true. I'm the one who wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, Kevin's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, oh,
But can you believe
no.
that we brought the 4 dogs? Like, holy cow, that was crazy. They're downstairs. Those dogs actually made it. I can't believe it. Chichi, Lolo, if you're still on, Chichi está bien. Está bien.
I think anyone that travels with dogs has a certain edge to them. So yes, I think that's awesome that they made it. Is their life? Have they acclimated well? Is their life?
They have.
Changed?
They have never gotten so much cuddle time. I mean, in a tropical climate, who wants to cuddle with a Shih Tzu, right? But now they're fluffy, they're warm, we bathe them often. So they're Kevin doesn't, but they're digging life in the Bronx. Yeah, they love it. Chi-Chi's, it's been a hard winter for Chi-Chi, but yeah, she's making it. She's a little Chihuahua.
Oh yeah,
8-pound Chihuahua.
Yeah. What can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing since you got? So I kind of shared your work, where you're working, or kind of what your titles, I guess, or roles. But can you tell us a little bit more about what that's been like? Because this is the first time in a while that you've been not exclusively kind of working on something together, right? I mean, in terms of your work with Akasa over the years. So good, bad, not sure yet. What, curious to know about that as well.
We just had a friend over, a Akasa alum, the other night, and we were talking about that this is the first time when we were Jesuit volunteers, we had our own jobs, but the first time really in our professional lives that we're working separately. And I think that Kevin and I, when we work together, and especially in the context of working with college students, I think that we just have a really good 1-2 punch. I think our commitments are very similar, but our approaches are vastly different. And our alums who are listening say, oh, absolutely. And there's just a real richness in that. And I think that we, what one doesn't see, the other often might. And not to say that it's like a perfectly oiled machine, but I think that we really, there is a sintonía, as we say in Spanish. How do you say that? Like just a syncing, being in sync. So I hold that, and just like the richness of that and the blessing that we've been able to work together for all these years. And a lot of my friends are like, oh dear God, if I had to work with my husband, and we'd kill each other. Unfortunately, that hasn't been our experience. It's really been a gift. But I do have to say that I also think at this point in our lives, at this season of our lives, I think it's nice to be working on different projects and to look at what are the gifts and talents that we've been able to foster over all these years and working together. How can we kind of share that in different ways? And we're doing very different kinds of things in the Bronx, obviously, collectively as a family. But I found it for the time, in the brief amount of time that we've been here, but to be an enriching kind of experience, and not that I felt bound to Kevin. I mean, and I envision in the future returning back to working more directly, because I really do think that's where we're most effective.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're each doing? A little bit more about it than what we heard in the intro?
Sure. Well, other than figuring out how do you live in the States, which has been a roller coaster, and we won't go into that, but it has been an ordeal. So when we came back, I took some months and just made it very clear I didn't want to be really bound to any kind of schedule. I wanted to be able to assist our family in transitioning this immense transition as a family, our girls never having lived in the States before. And I said, I just want to do that for as long as feels right. So we got here in September to the Bronx, and about the end of October, I was like, okay, so now what? And so long story short, I started a doctorate in ministry program at Fordham University, and so I'm only a couple of months in, but loving it, love to be back in the classroom, love to bring my Southern partners, conversation partners, Lolo was talked about all the time. And then I'm also, was not planning to do this, but felt it was an invitation that I really, on a spiritual, really profound level, could not say no to the invitation. But I'm accompanying a group of immigrant women in the Bronx at a parish, Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And so I'm heading a formation program that is sewing classes, computer classes, and then also a formation program. And really right now what we're doing is creating our space of confianza, of deep trust. So that's my gig.
And for me, Chris, one, I do miss working more directly with Trena. But it is fun to kind of, at the dinner table to hear like about her work at Our Lady of Mount Carmel or about her classes. And so there's absolutely that kind of sharing that happens. But I do miss like working kind of on a day-to-day schedule. I think we did get into good rhythms with that. But the work that I'm doing right now is actually with the Jesuit conference, as you said at the beginning there. And it's really exciting. I'm loving it. And again, really feeling kind of the spirit of Padre Dean Brackley as I'm, having all of these meetings with folks here in the Bronx who are working for justice and solidarity. So I'm on a team of working with on a First Studies program. So the Jesuit conference did a whole discernment about where to place a new First Studies program, and so that's what I'm working on. Working with Michael Sampelli and another Jesuit who was just named the Superior of the Community, Bill Sheenan from Rockhurst, who's going to be joining us. So yeah, it's exciting.
That's great. Different kind of work, but some of the same elements. So that's really exciting, and it's fun to bring home, and talk about work at the dinner table, and that's great. I want you guys to take a little break. We're going to do just a couple of announcements of some things going on with ISN and things like that. And when we come back, we have a few more questions. We'll do a few more shout outs. All right. But this is a good chance to take a little breather. So let me tell you about some ways that you out there, all of those joining us tonight, again, thanks for being with us. Some ways you can connect with the Ignatian Solidarity Network. Now, as you may know, it's Lent. Okay. Hopefully you know that. And our daily Lenten series is going strong. We have incredible writers, including Father Brian Massengale, Sister Norma Pimentel, and some previous Solidarity on Tap guests, including Father Greg Boyle, Dr. Marcia Chatelain, Father James Martin, Olga Segura. You can subscribe to this free daily series at igsol.net/steadfast. Steadfast is our theme for this Lenten season, and we hope that you will join us in that Lenten journey. Secondly, I'd like to invite you to take action with the Ignatian family tonight. Since October, Jesuit Father Stan Swami has been wrongly imprisoned in India. Multiple efforts to secure his release have been denied by courts, even though he is 83 years old and suffers from Parkinson's disease. For 50 years, Father Swami has worked tirelessly for the poor and marginalized communities of India, especially its indigenous people. His arrest is based on the false claim that he participated in a violent incident in a region he never had visited. He stands wrongfully accused because of his opposition to government policies that curtail the rights of indigenous communities. The United States plays an essential role as a global leader in the promotion and advancement of human rights on the international stage. And so tonight, we're asking you to take action to join us in urging the U.S. government to condemn the incarceration of Father Stan and ask the Indian government to release him immediately and to stop the arbitrary arrests of innocent citizens and activists. And you can take action tonight at the link on the screen. It's igsol.net, igsol.net/free-Swami. And so we hope you will join us in taking action this evening. And now let me tell you about our Solidarity on Tap sponsors. Mary No Lay Missioners work intentionally with those at the margins for a more just, compassionate, and sustainable world. To learn more about their work, join their Meet a Missioner Monday live streams on their Facebook page every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The Center for Global Education and Experience at Augsburg University believes education can create a more just and sustainable world, achieved by providing global immersive experiences in Latin America, Southern Africa, Palestine, and virtually Sharing the Jesuit vision of educating whole persons of solidarity, CGEE has worked with Boston College, Fordham University, and the University of San Francisco, among many other Jesuit institutions. Students who value social justice and solidarity will find a home studying migration in Mexico, the legacy of liberation theology in Central America, or decolonization in Southern Africa. Schedule a customized program for 2022 or apply for a future semester abroad by visiting augsburg.edu/global today. And finally, the Jesuit Volunteer Corps Northwest. You should think about, if you're young enough, you should think about a year of service in the Pacific Northwest focused on the core values of community, simple living, social and ecological justice, and spirituality and reflection. Jesuit volunteers live together in intentional community and serve in a variety of full-time roles at local partner organizations in Alaska, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, and Washington. Volunteers are also eligible for a AmeriCorps Education Award. You can learn more about becoming a JV at jvcnorthwest.org/join. And finally, we also want to invite you to join us for future virtual Solidarity on Tap events. Our next guest will be Mary Wardell Gerduzzi, the Vice Provost and Chief Diversity Officer at the University of San Francisco. She'll be joining us on Wednesday, March 24th. We'll be talking with her about her work related to diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education. You can learn more and RSVP at the link on the screen, which is igsol.net/SOT. Also, if you like the conversation this evening and want to share it or watch it again, this and all the previous Solidarity on Tap videos are available at ignatiansolidarity.net, as well as on our YouTube and Facebook pages. So make sure to check those out. There's some great conversations with amazing guests there. And if you enjoy Solidarity on Tap, please consider giving a gift to sustain the work of the Ignatian Solidarity Network. You can do this at ignatiansolidarity.net/donate. And finally, I want to make sure I let you know that you can share a picture of yourself watching this evening, or maybe even you're having a Zoom or virtual watch party. Share it to your Instagram account, tag at Ignatian Solidarity, and don't forget that hashtag ISN Live. And we'll feature you in our next Instagram story about Solidarity on Tap. All right. And now we're going to come back to Kevin and Trena. And we've got some folks some other folks who've joined us out there. Let's do something. Who else? Let's see. Oh, here we go. Well, first, Trina said, yes, you can cry. Trina said, that's okay. No worries. Alex says, greetings from Detroit Mercy. He says, Detroit Mercy's in the house. Welcome, Alex. The UDM Law School there. Victor says, saludos from San Francisco. Mom and Dad, that's sweet. Nice. Hannah says, hello from Santa Clara. That's fun. And let's see, there's another one we wanted to share. Let's see. Well, maybe we'll hear from some other folks. Oh, here we go. Terry says hello from Yale and Marymount University. And then Holy Trinity says, memories are great times at Manresa House at BC. Thank you for the generous witness, Kevin. I think
Kevin Gillespie.
Father Kevin Gillespie. So thanks for joining us. That's very fun. And let's see. Marcos Gonzalez says, saludos from Chicago. Welcome, Marcos. Right. Yeah, Katie Dorner. Welcome, Katie. Brendan says hello from Columbus. Right. Welcome, Brendan. We've got Katie. Oh, thanks so much. Right. Nicole says hello from Miami.
Hey, Nicole.
Yeah, we got a good crew here. Good crew.
Wow.
Tonight, right?
Good people.
All right. Let's talk a little bit more about. You mentioned the girls. What's it been like to raise 4 girls in a place like El Salvador, especially doing the work that you were doing all those years with college students, helping them to deepen their commitment to justice and their connection to communities and things like that. What were some of the maybe graces and maybe challenges of all that?
Wow. I think there's something in my drink. I want to cry again. I will share Hannah, our third daughter, just turned 16 on Wednesday, and it's every child's dream to turn 16 in the pandemic when we're all, living through all of this together. And so what we did, because we couldn't have a gathering, we couldn't have a party, we couldn't visit family, is we asked people that have been critical in her formation throughout her life to send us a little video, just to share with her what makes Hannah Hannah, and people who've known her since she was a newborn, her first babysitter who's on the phone on the call tonight, and to just reflect who Hannah has been and who Hannah is. And so it was a compilation of ex-CASA students, former staff members who came back to El Salvador. It was Salvadorans in the communities. Lolo was a part of it. Lots of Salvadorans, from some of her friends from school in Salvador, her family in the States, our friend Mark Revisa in Rome, and her new community here in the Bronx. And that video was about an hour and a half of people who reflected her love. And I think for me that speaks to the experience of raising our daughter in a context like El Salvador. And when I ask people to help us out, I think at the end I put, it takes a village. And, we all know that. And fortunately, in our lives and in our community that we had created in El Salvador, it really was a village that helped us to raise our daughters. That's just something that I'm so, so grateful for. And I think I know a gift that they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. I don't care, maybe like the faith, what does it mean, faith formation in the context of El Salvador, in the context of, not that you have to answer that, but
Right.
Just throw it up.
Yeah, there's a lot, I can't imagine a better context to be raising the girls during the time that we were there at the UCA and in Antiguo Cuscatlan there. And as you said, like having contact with these students that would come down that are just like so generous and wanting to learn and explore and kind of dive into the reality of Salvador. Our community partners, as Trina mentioned, like Lolo. I always, like, as a dad, I always loved the fact that, they felt as comfortable going into Giovanni's house up in Tepecoyo, who come from very simple, humble means, as they were as comfortable going into my folks' house outside of Chicago, and I think it's been, now who knows, they're still young, so we'll see how they turn out, but I mean, I feel very grateful for the formation and kind of having raised them. Oftentimes we would go to mass at the UCA, where they would, obviously surrounded with the legacy of the martyrs, but also in El Pueblo de Dios en Camino, which is a Christian-based community, to really see powerful women kind of leading congregations and stuff. And so, yeah, and now with the transition, it's fascinating. I mean, if you're interested in kind of like the identity stuff and like how that they each would identify as Latina, obviously they're gringas, but being here in the Bronx, I can't think of a better place for us to have landed. This is like one of the most diverse places on the planet, which is awesome. And we haven't been able to like really engage like we want to, but literally just like a block from our house here, there's a park, and you walk along there and you're hearing all different languages spoken. When we arrived in September, there were like groups of like doing the reggaeton, and the girls kind of, and like where Hannah goes to school, like she's speaking Spanish. So it's interesting to kind of see, and I mean, we're in the middle of it to like live into it. Our girls going to Santa Clara. So it's fascinating to kind of see how their formation will continue, in this context with Gracie and Sophie at Santa Clara. So, yeah.
What's been, as you've come to the Bronx. You know, Trina, as you noted, you're about half year in or so. What's been a grace for you in that transition, and what's been a struggle or a challenge?
I like it better when you stay on the screen, Chris, because it feels more like a conversation than a presentation. So I like seeing you there. You know, can I go back to the previous question, because I remember when our girls were very little, and Yelena, who was a student from Santa Clara, grew up in Chile, and her mom came to visit, and she said, and Yelena was a professor of anthropology in Chicago, and her mom said, "I see my children as citizens of the world." And I don't think I didn't understand it when she said it to me, because our daughters were very young, and I was like, well, we're just trying to get through the day. Like, I don't think about anything except like the next bath or the next meal. But now that they're older, I understand that more. And I feel even more hoy en día, like our current cultural context, how important that is for them. And they will talk about it, and they talk about like, what does it mean to come back to the States where identity is primarily in certain subcultures, right, but defined individually, and they come from a context where identity is defined collectively, and they're seeing that tension and how they interact with their peers, for example, and questions that are asked or questions more often that aren't asked, and how do they balance that tension. So as Kevin was talking about, this kind of like identity, I don't think it's a crisis that they're going through, but they definitely feel that tension of, wow, there's a saying that in El Salvador we say, ni de aquí, ni de allá. So they were never really, truly Salvadoran, but then they come to the States and they're not really, truly from here either. And I think that that's a gift, you know, living into that and understanding what that is, I think is a gift. Blessings.
Yeah, the transition.
Yeah, a grace or a challenge or both, maybe.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you got a dishwasher.
Well, you know, I was actually saying like, oh my gosh, a dishwasher and dimming lights, like in closets. Those are kind of fabulous.
Yeah,
things.
We actually have closets.
Yeah. But I think, you know, in the midst of a pandemic, so I think that this would happen anywhere, transitioning in the midst of a pandemic, where we come from a culture where physical contact and embrace and a hug and a kiss on the cheek is a way of greeting, and it's a way of saying, I see you, you're here, you matter, and I'm taking that time for you. And then coming to a culture that doesn't do it, generally speaking, in the same way, but then especially in the context of a pandemic, it's been hard. Yet, just this morning, I had this incredible morning with these women in this formation, and we were really able to begin to. So I'm answering. So this is the grace too, into talking about confianza, and we were able to begin to do it. And to see the movements in the women, every single person in that room, and I include myself, an immigrant woman who left because they had to for different reasons, and being in this space where they were starting to really go to intimate places with one another. And so I was leaving this room with another woman, Angeles, and I said, oh my gosh, like, we're able to do this. And we're all masked. We have the social distancing. Like, what's going to happen when we don't have to do this anymore? So I think that's the challenge, and also a grace moment for me.
Yeah, I would say for me, Chris, you know, it's been amazing. There's, you know, you go to a new place and there's so much to learn, right? So I've been doing a deep dive into like the history, particularly in the South Bronx, into this area. I've been with my work, it's like I've been able to meet with, as I said earlier, like a lot of these leaders of different organizations. The solidarity justice work here in the Bronx is cosa seria. I mean, they are really, there's a long history. And so like engaging people and starting to learn more in depth about that. I had, again, my context with Dean, we actually have a number of alums. There's probably like 6 or 7 alums who are working here in the Bronx.
Nice.
So reconnecting with them and kind of, again, like this learning so that we can develop these partnerships so that our students can go and, and be this in the accompaniment model, this praxis-based model. So for me, it's just been such a gift. Like, I can't imagine vocationally, like, yeah, I'm just super grateful for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love, kind of like it closed a loop with Dean, in terms of
Totally.
coming back to where he left. Right. And
Absolutely.
it's a neat way to think about it. Well, I want to finish up, and we usually ask our guests a simple question, though maybe it doesn't have simple answers. But you're coming to the U.S. during obviously in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of a time of a lot of political strife in this country. You're leaving a country, El Salvador, that continues to struggle with lots of realities of injustice and political strife as well, right? And so, in the midst of all that, what gives you hope in your work, as your vocation as parents and as spouses? What gives you hope in your days?
Whew, that's a great question. Yeah, you go first.
I just finished reading this book by a Jesuit from Spain, Pachi. And it's all on the history of the social apostolate within the Jesuits. And I found it absolutely fascinating. I loved it. It's very much connected with our work. But for me, like because in the day-to-day, it can be super hard. You come up against these challenges. But when I kind of take that long view, I don't know, it doesn't, but I kind of have this sense that God is working through our long history, right? And I remember back when I referred to that time I was in Jamaica back in undergrad, and I remember meeting with an economist there and him saying, we asked kind of a similar question, and his response was, we as a people have kind of created the systems that have that are causing all of these injustices and stuff. And so his hope was well, as a people together, we can work towards justice, and so with Pachi's book, I have this sense of if we can continue to create opportunities where we walk in solidarity with others, that I think, and Dean would say the same thing, that's the key. It's not that everyone's kind of called to be working directly with those on the margins, but I would argue that we do need to have that at some point in our journey, that connection, so that we can continue and kind of do our part with our vocational, whatever that is, we're called to do, to kind of work on that arc towards justice. So yeah, at times it seems overwhelming, and at times it is overwhelming. I mean, one of our good friends, Jean Denis, who is the Jesuit superior in Haiti, right now, I mean, I've been communicating with him, and it's just it sounds just, the challenges are through the roof, or you mentioned in El Salvador with the situation there. So, it's not to discount the darkness or how hard it is, but I think, when we have one another in that communal, the Lolos of the world, and the folks that we're meeting here in the Bronx, and the ISN, and the hope that, in connecting us, that together, we can, be on this journey together. So, I don't know.
Yeah. And before you share, Trena, I just want to, I appreciate you pointing out the book. The book is entitled Serving the Poor, Promoting Justice. It was written by Pachi Alvarez, a Spanish Jesuit who served as the Secretariat for Justice and Ecology at the Jesuit Curia in Rome for a number of years. And one of the things about the book, kind of back to Trena, your points about Ignatian discernment and the messiness of discernment and decision making, and you see the development of the Jesuits' commitment to justice out of a lot of messiness and out of a lot of imperfection.
Totally.
In the life of Ignatius, and in the evolution of the Society of Jesus. So I think we always have to be open to that messiness in our deepening of our commitment to being people of justice, people of faith, things like that. So, Trena, how about for you?
Do we have time? I'll give you.
Absolutely have time.
I'm glad you asked the question, because as you asked, I was like, gosh, that's a good question. And I have hope, but since I think we've come back, I haven't asked myself that question. And just today, one of our daughters, she said it yesterday at dinner, and I will not say literally what she said, because Grandma's listening, but she said, the world is so effing messed up. It doesn't matter what we do. It's always going to be messed up. And so that spurred a conversation last night at dinner, and then we went on a walk today. And so we were talking about, like, and for me, like, that is true, but what is our option? Like, there is no option for me to lose hope in the midst of that, because then what? Brazos cruzados, I don't do anything because it's so bad. And so what is my personal response in whatever way that looks like? What is her response? Hopefully she will discover that, in the years to come. And I think, like, as I get older, my understanding of my faith and my understanding of Christian identity, which for me, there's lots of problematic things about it. And I'm learning that more and more as I get older. Yet at the same, so my understanding of faith and salvation is more expansive. Yet at the same time, for me, my clinging on to and leaning on the life of Jesus is also becoming stronger. And so that for me gives me an incredible amount of hope and challenges me. Like, if I say I am a follower of Jesus, then there's a lot at stake, and there is a lot required of me, but also, like, there's this incredible blueprint, right? Like, this incredible playbook of, this is what it looked like. So now let's use our brains and let's, like, look at what's happening around us, and what does that look like today? And I think for me, in the day to day, it's much more relational. Kevin is kind of more like the systems, like systems guy, and I tend to be more like the, I won't go into that. But I think for me, like, those conversations this morning with those women, like, that is, right. There's so much hope there, because we all, as Sunny, our very good friend in California, says, like, we all want to be known, and we all want to be loved. Like, at the end of the day, that's what we all want. And so to be able to be part of creating spaces where we're known and where we're loved, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, we have to change the systems, obviously, that tell us that we don't matter. But in that moment, to be part of that, for me, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, and that idea of you mentioned the blueprint, right? The blueprint of being a Christian, or of following Christ. And within that blueprint, there are great points of desolation and also an absolute moment of hope, right? So, yeah. Well, thank you so much to both of you for being with us tonight. So grateful to spend time with you. So grateful. Well, many of us who've shared, including myself, many of us who joined us tonight have shared how much joy their time with you in El Salvador brought them. I know that many of us are grateful that we might be able to see you in a new location sometime soon, when it's more possible to come visit in the Bronx and things like that.
Come to the Bronx. You're all invited.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much to everyone out there who joined us tonight for Solidarity on Tap. Again, make sure to join us in a couple weeks as we host Mary Wardell Giarduzzi from University of San Francisco. And remember, if you like tonight's conversation, you can always go find it online on our at ignatiansolidarity.net, on our YouTube or Facebook pages as well. Thanks, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chris.